Back in the year 1959, before gay people were invented, Ruth Handler, mother of two, witnessed her daughter Barbara play with paper dolls,
Chicken Run,
but curiously noticed that Barbara forced her toys into adult roles. Ruth thought, most children's toys are made to look like infants or kids, so I wonder if there's a gap in the market for children to live vicariously through toys modeled after adults. She then brought this question up to her husband, Elliot Handler, who just happened to be the co-founder of the moderately successful toy company, Mattel. Coincidence? I don't know, I didn't write this part. But Elliot wasn't too keen on the idea. Elliot and the Mattel board of directors called Ruth silly, in an implicitly sexist, transatlantic sort of way. So Ruth was discouraged until the day she came upon a German sex doll. The doll in question,
hell yeah!
Lily. The woman in question, Ruth, thought, hey, let me just steal this design. And on March 9th, 1959...
Okay, already learned something new. Barbie's based off a sex doll. What up?
A new name given as an homage to her daughter Barbara, Ruth presented Barbie to the world. Barbie adorned a black and white striped swimsuit and was available in the two genders, blonde and brunette. Little did Ruth know that her German sex doll under another name would give rise to a toy empire, a cultural icon, and over 30 homoerotic films. Wait a second, you're definitely not saying out loud. Barbie? Homoerotic? Barbie is one of the straightest things on Earth. How could anything
Nah, Barbie ain't straight. Barbie is just with Ken, who is clearly a beard.
Barbie related, besides Ken, be homoerotic? Before we answer that, let's talk about this video sponsor, Raycon.
No.
Versatile 15% for 48 for queer people. The Barbie movies and the Barbie brand focus on non-heterosexual, non-cis male identity in a way that uniquely facilitates queer readings of the Barbie movies. And when I say liberal, I don't mean liberal in the SJW soyboy cuck sense. I'm using liberal in the classical sense. Cucks who believe in a general philosophy of individual liberty and legal equality. The tension between the Barbie brand's function as a vessel for imposing middle-class female roles versus the ways Barbie creates a space for people to project their identities, especially identities that may challenge these roles, well, that tension produces some interesting outcomes. The Barbie movies decenter the male gaze and allows for the recentering of the female gaze, and well, the female gaze. And it's not lost on me that I'm a male who has eyes that gaze, and that perhaps I'm not a feminist scholar who can speak authoritatively on the subject. I'll do my best to elevate some relevant works within queer feminist literature written by people who aren't men with eyes. I don't want to claim that Barbie is some radical, revolutionary product, especially when this product is so dependent on gender stereotypes and market forces. But queer people have made Barbie their own. And can you blame them? Sure. Maybe the Barbie movie characters break out into songs about being besties, but can we really forget the much discussed cottagecore lesbians, the intimate dances, and the hidden in plain sight queer metaphors? Oh, where are my manners? I forgot to introduce myself. And sorry for breaking into your house and going on this tirade unprovoked, but while I have you tied up there, my name's Alex, and you are going to keep this between us. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyways, let's get into Barbie. Let's go back into history. While Mattel finally got on board with the Barbie thing after Ruth became less Ruth and more ruthless about her business, they still faced a problem. How do you market a children's toy modeled after an adult? It seems a silly question today, but adult role-play toys for kids were a pretty novel idea in the 1950s. So they called the doctor. In the 1950s, the expert psychiatrist Dr. Ernest Dichter decided to use his powers.
No! That was not his name. I refuse. I refuse to acknowledge that kind of name. I don't care if it's 10,000 years old, okay? Not using it. How is a real person alive with a last name like Dichter.
For absolute evil by making a name for himself in marketing. Imagine leaving the noble and ethical world of American pharmaceuticals. Well, according to Dichter's diagnosis, Barbie was a hit with the kids, but not the parents. Her mature figure made some parents uncomfortable. I mean, the audacity to have breasts? Dr. Dichter unveiled his solution: market Barbie as a role model, as a product that would help young girls become poised little ladies. After Mattel aired a commercial with the strategy in mind, the doll became an instant success. But after gay people were invented and feminist movements gained prominence in the 60s and 70s, Barbie found herself at the center of a larger critique. A lot of these criticisms almost became as famous as the doll itself. Some argued that Barbie promoted a very specific and unrealistic standard of beauty among young girls, and epitomized a very limiting
Lady
cisgender,
Raincloud?
white, and heterosexual role
Dichter.
that women were expected to uphold and idealize.
Dichter, I hardly
and
know
these
her.
critiques make sense. Most people don't look like this, nor is it physically possible to look like this. Yet the inventor of Barbie, Ruth Handler, didn't have that same vision. In her words, "My whole philosophy of Barbie was that through the doll, the little girl could be anything she wanted to be. Barbie always represented the fact that a woman has choices.
Hell yeah.
What roles do we play when we play? There is a tension within Barbie. Structure versus agency. Choice versus constraint. When you play with Barbie, who do you play? Can you really
When you play with Barbie, you play with the possibilities.
be anything? Does the Barbie doctor doll really signal the fact that you too could be a doctor? Or does the Barbie brand, one that promotes a thin blonde fashionista, impose an ideal that a player must play? I'm sure a host of different arguments exist on either side, but on the agency side of the argument, some people claim that Barbie play can be a liberating space. Many young people found their love of queer aesthetics and femininity through their gender non-conforming play with Barbie. Who was Barbie for the kids who made their Barbies kiss? Who cut their Barbie's hair to lean into an alternative style? Who put Ken's clothes on Barbie and Barbie's clothes on Ken? Many people have a special relationship to Barbie. The idea of getting to live whatever adult life you wanted, even ones that seemed unavailable, the ability to choose one's circumstances in a fictional pretend space, appealed to thousands of queer people in their youth. So, the meaning of Barbie is pretty contested. What does this woman stand for? What are her positions on the economy? Well, we can't exactly assign a single meaning to Barbie.
She stands for nothing.
That doesn't mean that we can't critique or analyze how Barbie interacts with material culture. So let's do that. What is it about the intersection of film and Barbie that produces such gay results? Ah, the 90s. What a great time to be alive. There was the, we can't forget the, well, I was born in
Not wrong.
2000, so I don't really know what kind of carriages people were riding back then, but I do know that in the 1990s, Barbie's popularity began to decline, and people were trying to figure out how to modernize the appeal of a doll conceived for a 1950s problem. So the Barbie people scrammed for new ideas that reflected the era. This 1993 holiday gift season, gift your little girl the gift of a dream. The dream to be a substance-abusing Ivy League graduate. The violent arm of the state. A substance-abusing Ivy League graduate. In addition, it seemed a good solution to increase sales by going digital. Invest in media and films to increase the interactivity between consumers and products. And now there's 39 of these things? Okay, no. I'm not gonna watch all of them. Hey, trust me, I would if I could, okay? It would make a great clickbait title. But I can't do that. I have things to do, people to see, videotapes to return. But I have watched the gayest ones, and I'm gonna cover a few of them. Like I said at the beginning of this pile of shit, at the
Queer
same time that
Marxist
Barbie
reading of
epitomizes
Barbie.
heterosexual cis female socialization, for queer people, the Barbie movies and the Barbie brand focus on non-male identities and homosocial, or same-gender, relationships in a way that uniquely facilitates queer readings. Before we discuss what the Barbie movies are, we have to discuss what the Barbie movies are not. In 1975, feminist film theorist Laura Mulvey published her essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, in which she uses Freudian psychoanalysis to understand the power dynamics of narrative cinema. I won't go over all the Freudian terms and the talk of phalluses. I tend to think we should generally limit phallus talk to a minimum, but in the essay, she coined a term that's now in popular use: the male gaze. She argues that the gaze of narrative cinema, that is, the general position that arises from a film's camera work, from its portrayal of women, to the film's own subjective perspective, is a male one.
You would say that, Entrama.
The camera directs its gaze at objects of desire. In the case of mainstream film, that is often an objectified female body.
The male gaze is booba.
Film portrays men in an active role and women in a passive role.
Awooga emoji.
Most people understand this part. The idea that there's a lot of movies where a sexy woman appears, a man's eyes pop out of his head and he has to roll his tongue back off from the floor, and there's some suggestive camera work that treats women as sexual objects, and this
yeah, wiggle for me, baby.
Humanizes and takes away the autonomy of women in film by leaving men in control of the narrative. And then there's the other part of the theory, the identification with the male perspective. The audience is forced to take the position of the male gaze, and so the male perspective becomes the perspective. By entering the film, for the audience, the male perspective becomes naturalized and neutralized, when in reality, it reflects the interests of the gender in power. Even with media that sexually objectifies men, like Magic Mike, this doesn't necessarily imply the existence of a stable definition of a female gaze. Magic Mike is just the male gaze applied to men. It uses the same cinematic techniques developed by men in a patriarchal context. But that doesn't mean a female gaze couldn't hypothetically exist. In her essay, Mulvey hints at an emerging cinema alternative to the mainstream that helps challenge film's unjust hierarchies, one that challenges the assumptions of mainstream film. Are the Barbie movies the radical challenge to the patriarchal power dynamics that underlie mainstream cinema? No, they aren't, but the Barbie movies don't exactly fit neatly into the box of mainstream narrative cinema that Mulvey portrays, right? When you're marketing a product to young girls, I would hope that you're not creating a product that centers male identity and the sexual desires of men, or anyone's sexual desires. Although sometimes in the Barbie movies there's assassins, feudalism, aristocracy, conspiracies, class war.
Yeah, honestly, like, from what I've seen, the Barbie movies do a lot with a very little, and that's pretty cool.
Warfare, and yes, even limited on-screen romance. The more mature aspects of romance and sexuality aren't really at the center of the Barbie films. There's a good reason for that, obviously.
Here you go,
The most important relationships in an elementary school girl's life are probably going to be her family and her friends. So even though heterosexual romance does exist in the Barbie movies, it isn't the big driving force that it is in traditional cinema. There's about 39 movies and only 4 on-screen kisses, as it should be, since we all know premarital contact is a mortal sin. But whose gaze is it then? There isn't an explicitly focused object of desire, and Barbie isn't really objectified, nor are her male colleagues in the way we traditionally see in mainstream film, and the male perspective isn't super present. Instead, you could say that the audience identifies with a refreshingly female perspective that focuses on relationships between women, on the struggles of being a woman in a Barbie context, and the meaning of self-determination for women. For a lot of queer people growing up, especially queer women, the Barbie movies were a space to move away from the male gaze towards a female one, a space that centers female relationships. And as these queer kids grew up, they carried with them this destabilization of male heterosexuality that they witnessed in the Barbie movies. It was a part of their awakenings and identity formations, just like James McAvoy. Yeah. On the other hand, it seems intuitive that the Barbie movies just have to be patriarchal in some way. I mean, it's Barbie. Well, scholar of gender and sexuality Erica Rand studied the Barbie phenomenon back in the 1990s. In her book, Barbie's Queer Accessories, she argues that while Barbie does provide a space of exploration and projection, the Barbie brand also does the work of promoting cultural hegemony. Whoa. Cultural hegemony? Gays? This is sounding too much like my sociology seminar. Let's back it up before I get turned on. Neo-Marxist Italian twunk Antonio Gramsci devised a theory of a process he called cultural hegemony. In the Twunkian view, capitalist ideology, or basically the assumptions we take for granted in everyday life for how things should be run, is used to legitimate and maintain capitalist domination. He theorized that the dominant class uses capitalist ideology within culture to make the masses, that's you, consent to their own domination. The masses, you again, aren't necessarily being brainwashed or being forced to do anything per se, but the masses' interests are superficially met by the dominant class in order to keep us all consenting to the system. So how does this apply to Barbie? Erica Rand argues that Barbie's liberating ideology of unlimited possibilities and individual autonomy keeps you consenting to the Barbie brand. Perhaps you're a young queer person and Barbie makes you feel hope. Supposedly, you can project your identity onto Barbie and make her anything you desire. But at the same time, your support of the Barbie brand helps maintain the Barbie image that truly dominates. The image of a white, thin, blonde fashionista with a closeted boyfriend. Thus, in the Barbie universe, queer people have the space to construct their own identities under conditions they can never completely redefine. In this way, it's impossible to fully classify the Barbie movies. Academics Karen Vered and Christelle Maisonneuve conceive of the Barbie movies in a similar way. Sure, the female characters have agency, but they only barely disrupt the status quo. Yet, even if the assumption of heterosexual romance is always there, Barbie characters are also pulled by their own agency in other directions. As Vered and Maisonneuve say, the homosocial girl power narratives fix Barbie and her companions in a liminal state that seems to refuse classification.
Hell yeah, Cuphead?
The Barbie movies
Fantastic
keep discourses of gender and sexuality open for the gays, while at the same time naturalizing heterosexuality and feminine gender roles for the straights. This just sounds like a bunch of postmodern neo-Marxist academic propaganda though. Why don't we take a look at some of the Barbie movies and see the theory in action? Let's start with the gay one. Oh wait.
Gay in plain sight.
In this breakout hit of the summer of 2017, featuring the most cutting-edge animation techniques of 2003, we join Barbie and her sisters on their vacation to an unnamed tropical island to revel in the legacies of Western neocolonialism.
Aw,
Meet
shit.
Barbie. She's not like other girls.
She's got
No
a
one
brain.
loves sandwiches more than me.
Ever met a girl that loves a sandwich? Didn't think so, punk. Her and her sisters are on vacation, and they're hanging out with their bro Ken on this nice island. Also, magical dolphins exist. Hey, unrelated fun fact. Did you know that male bottlenose dolphins only form temporary sexual relationships with female dolphins, but from a young age form lifelong homosexual partnerships with other males, and that it's not uncommon for widowed male dolphins to join other male partnerships in a type of polyamorous arrangement?
Oh, fuck.
So, who knows what's going on here? Anyways, there's a queer-coded mermaid, and her gay dolphin friend is trapped by this queer-coded villain in an aquatic research facility because he's literally green.
Okay, but...
Her friend is trapped by this queer-coded villain.
She's clearly the cool one. And also, she kind of looks like me if I had a more lesbian haircut.
In an aquatic research facility because he's literally green.
Just saying.
The mermaid, who I'll call Isla because that's her name, tries to rescue the dolphin,
literally
Emerald. But Barbie almost catches her in the act. Since
Wait, I need to take a screenshot now.
queer-coded mermaid and her gay dolphin... who knows what's going on here? Anyways, there's a queer-coded mermaid, and her gay dolphin friend is trapped by this queer-coded villain in an aquatic research facility because he's literally green. The mermaid, who I'll call Isla because that's her name, tries to rescue the dolphin, Emerald. But Barbie almost catches her in the act. Since Isla can shapeshift, she pretends to be human and claims to be from a remote island place. Is she, you know, from a remote island place? Barbie convinces her to hold up on the seeming federal crime and wait until the gay villain lady calls the vet to check on Emerald. After Barbie and Isla fall in love, they find out the gay villain lady is a gay villain lady who wants to sell Emerald into the circus or something. They devise a plan to break Emerald out, and after some overly convoluted teamwork, they succeed, go out for some sushi, and kiss. So, what the hell is so queer about this movie? Well, what the hell isn't queer about this movie? The heart of the movie, the cathartic center, completely revolves around the relationship between these two women. While most media automatically pairs any man and woman that interact within a 5-foot radius, Barbie Dolphin Magic centers female relationships in a way you won't see much in other media. Ken gets family zoned at the very beginning of the movie.
Isla, have you met Ken yet? He grew up next door to us. We think of him like family.
As our friends Vered and Maisonneuve argued in their piece on Barbie, these independent female characters remain outside of any sexual economy. So, if we say that the sexual economy is some theoretical landscape where we all traditionally battle it out for bone, then the Barbie movies place their characters outside of the sexual economy, and therefore outside of the landscape of immediate heterosexual romance. So nothing's really going on with old Ken here. Meanwhile, Barbie and Isla's relationship starts with a little meet cute. And throughout the film, there's a lot of little casual touches. It's some of the only intimacy we see outside of the familial type that Barbie has
Good
with
night,
her
scrawny
sisters.
dweeb.
So what? They flirt a bit? What? It's not like Barbie invites her over or anything.
Why not stay with us instead? We have plenty of room.
Okay,
Barbie inviting girls over, huh?
so what if she's inviting a literal stranger who she believes was committing federal crimes earlier to sleep over? I need something more concrete.
It's official. You like sandwiches way more than me.
Not the sandwiches. Now, in the middle of Barbie trying to seduce Isla, we're introduced to another aspect of the film that makes it a little gay, a very minor queer metaphor. At this point, Isla isn't aware of the vibe between mermaids and humans, although Shaylee seems to know that she has to hide who she really is. She begins to understand the gravity of fish phobia when Ken mentions a curious practice.
Well, I clean the tanks where we keep the starfish, and
Why do you keep them in tanks?
so Marlo can study them.
Oh, that doesn't seem right.
This is the moment that Isla realizes she's an oppressed minority. How can her and Barbie ever be together when fish and humans live in an antagonistic relationship? It parallels the moment in which queer people realize the nature of homophobia. We all remember those comments where your dad makes a derogatory comment about the two young men in jean jackets at Chipotle, and if you're queer, that could be the moment when you realize that not only are you different, but people look down upon you for this difference. And we see this queer moment come alive here. Yet the Barbie ethos tells us to fight for who you are, especially when you have a friend or a gal pal at your side. The lesbian relationship then reaches its climax when the metaphor and romance intersect. Barbie and Isla start bonding as fuck by going on a swim together, and listen, as far as romantically charged swims go, this one's pretty up there. So they're just chilling out, giving each other romantic looks, like, you know when two of your friends are obviously into each other and they're both too shy to say anything, but not shy enough to
Midweek
refrain
Gold,
from
thank you for
devouring each other with their
subscribing.
eyes or getting married. They have so much fun that Isla ends up telling Barbie that she's a lesbian. Mermaid. But really though, she's coming out as a lesbian. Isla with her little secret she can't tell anyone, living a double life, oppressed by society, and suddenly sharing this secret with a woman she clearly admires.
So, you're a mermaid? Yes, a mermaid. But don't freak out, okay? Are you kidding? This is the coolest thing ever.
Leaning into Isla, Barbie's eyes widen with excitement as she can't resist the allure of her new lesbian mermaid friend. From the ashes of their heterosexuality, Isla and Barbie begin the most homoerotic scene in all of cinema, as Isla agrees to teach Barbie how to swim like a mermaid. Okay? What's going on? What is this? What did they mean by this? Throughout this, what I can only assume to be an initiation ritual into lesbianism, there's a palpable desire and tension. Their connection undoubtedly rises to the surface. They're whipped. I'm shocked. I'm surprised homophobic moms didn't boycott this film. After they kiss for a while, Barbara and Isla eventually save Emerald using the power of bisexual lighting. Isla leaves for a while, but eventually comes back because
I would never give up on my sister of the sea.
is she, a sister of the sea? Lesbian mermaids. We all know one, but have we really bothered to think about their significance? This movie manages to subvert the male gaze in peculiar ways. Obviously, Barbie isn't the object of the male gaze's desire, and the male gaze is never inverted so as to have Barbie objectify Ken. The lack of heterosexual romance is itself pretty astonishing. Nor is Barbie valued because she's a badass girl boss who kicks ass. Not saying she isn't, but the film doesn't have to justify her role as the protagonist by making her embody the traits that the patriarchy values in men. She's compassionate, caring, intelligent, forgiving, and vulnerable. The relationships in this movie don't involve the active pursuit of a passive subject, but instead a type of egalitarian horizontal love. And in the end, this lack of active pursuit helps highlight a healthy love between the emotional center, Barbie and Isla. At the same time though, while the story emphasizes love and self-determination on the surface, we only see that love and self-determination available for the characters who meet certain standards of traditional beauty and femininity, while the hot-headed, short-haired villain is subtextually cast to the side as the other. So while Barbie's compassion invites us to love one another and subverts patriarchal cinematic techniques, the subtext only invites those who fit neatly within the Barbie brand. It maintains the hegemony of the Barbie brand to keep us feeling just liberated enough to feel comfortable within the brand, but not liberated enough to break free completely from its boundaries. So yeah, this movie's pretty gay, and yeah, it challenges a lot of things we take for granted in traditional cinema. But is it radical? Revolutionary? Maybe if you're a dolphin. Barbie in The Princess and the Pauper starts with another metaphor, a political statement even.
Free to fly, free to sing, and marry whom I choose.
Now in 2004, the idea of marrying who you choose was a pretty loaded statement. Nearly 8 months prior to the release of Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper, Del Martin and Phyllis Lyon became the first legally married gay couple in the history of the United States after the mayor of San Francisco began permitting marriage licenses to be issued to same-sex couples. In May of that year, Massachusetts legalized same-gender unions and slowly kick-started the movement for marriage equality in the United States. On November 14th, 2004, Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper made its television debut on Nickelodeon, spreading a message of liberation, independence, and free choice to an audience of millions. Perhaps the Princess and the Pauper's liberating themes spoke to young queer audiences and left a poignant impression, despite its seemingly implicit endorsement of economic inequality and aristocracy. Let's explore that tension. This is a story about politics, deception, murder, romance, and homosexuality? The tale begins with the story of two girls born on the same day to families of different standing. One was born a princess, the other born in New Jersey. Basically, the animators didn't want to use different character models, so now, wow, they look just alike. What an incredible coincidence. Like many people before wage slavery crushes them, these two heroines have hopes and dreams. Annalise, the princess, is forced into an arranged marriage, but is in love with some guy. Erica, the pauper,
Why did the animation get worse? The budget got cut, motherfucker.
dreams of touring the world as a famous singer. As Erica and Annalise prepare to fall in love with each other, this random himbo, Preminger, nearly bankrupts the kingdom by literally stealing money. I guess no one noticed since the entire government just seems to be like 3 people. Premonger also plans on stealing the crown by planning to kidnap the princess, then fake saving her, thereby making him the hero entitled to anything he wants. I don't know, bro, men are literally insane sometimes. In the final days before Annalise is sold off like a prized hen, she and her dude are walking along the street and hear Erica singing. Why the f*** is that cat barking? The two bond over their shared lesbianism and part ways. P. Mingler ends up executing the plan, but the sexy guy suspects that Pooh Liquor is up to no good, and launches a counterattack by insisting that Erica pretend to be Annalise, while the sexy guy can f*** around and find out. The king that Princess Annalise was supposed to marry
I support this gay adventure.
ends up whipped and falls in love with Erica, whom he thinks is actually the princess. Through unnecessarily convoluted circumstances, the truth ends up coming out anyways and Erica gets thrown into a hole. In the meantime, Postmodern leverages his wealth against the kingdom's bankruptcy and figures he can convince the queen to marry him before Pete Davidson does. Before the marriage of the century, we arrive at one big final confrontation where the real truth comes out. Then Annalise and Erica come out? And then I think everyone ends up in a polyamorous polycule? It is not the horrific animation, nor the sexy dudes that I find particularly compelling about Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper. Instead, it's the incredible homosexual applicability between the queer metaphors in this film, the queer relationships, and the contradicting power dynamics they seemingly reinforce. As I mentioned previously, the two protagonists fundamentally desire the ability to determine their own destinies. I'm sure queer people can relate to that feeling of being trapped within a certain path, longing for something you were told was impossible. Not only is the central conflict incredibly queer, but can you even come up with dreams more homosexualist than longing for a choice to marry who you really love and the desire to pursue a career in the performing arts? Okay, seriously, why the f*** is that cat barking?
Did I just hear your cat bark?
Has a style all his own.
Oh,
Oh, it was a metaphor. It wasn't an animation goof. It wasn't an animation goof. It was a metaphor.
Kyle all on his own. Now I get it. That's incredibly important. The movie emphasizes the beauty in being unique, being yourself, being true to your identity.
I love you the way you are, and that will never change.
And through this metaphor, Annalise and Erica bond over their mutual oddness, or as I would say, queerness.
I'm just like you.
You are?
You're just like me. There's somewhere else we'd rather be. Somewhere that's ours. Somewhere the dreams come true. Yes, I am a girl like you.
Like maybe some kind of sleepy, artsy-fartsy village, you know? We can just wear overalls and paint mugs and reenact scenes from the movie Ghost. But, you know, gayer.
They are both women who cannot live in the roles that society has assigned to them. It's not just that they don't like their roles, but that they feel something fundamental within them that cannot change. They connect over this fact, and they connect
I
in
think
ways
you were
they
correct.
haven't connected with anyone before, perhaps in a lesbian way? Yet, as the scholars before warned us, the liberation that Annalise and Erica experienced for each other is an incomplete one. Sure, they got their polyamorous wedding and were able to overcome their personal problems, but there's no larger critique of society. Why doesn't Erica fight the same power dynamics that entrapped her in her role by saying, hey, maybe we should stop this whole undemocratic monarchy business, huh? Why doesn't she advocate for poor people across the kingdom? Are they still going to throw people into dungeons? And if you're thinking, oh, it's a kids movie, they can just skip ahead to the French Revolution right away. Well, there have been plenty of kids movies like The Lorax or WALL-E that have made decent critiques of injustice in the past, so it's not like it's impossible. The movie maintains the narrative of liberal individualism that keeps the hegemony of the Barbie brand running. It's the same liberal individualism that queer activists in the 2000s used to justify the fight for marriage equality. For both Barbie and the queer people longing to have the same basic legal rights afforded to everyone else, that regime of open individualism can be genuinely meaningful and important. And while legal rights are extremely important within the context of a democratic system, it's also important to at least acknowledge the criticisms more radical sects of the queer community had of activists' hyper-focus on marriage equality. How excited should queer people be to join the same institutions that justified and perpetuated homophobia? Why should queer people model themselves after historically heterosexual institutions? That's not a question I intend to resolve here, nor am I saying that marriage equality is a bad thing. But Barbie simply provides an interesting parallel. Annalise and Erica pulled themselves up by their bra straps and articulated their own independence in a courageous way, but never directly challenged the power dynamics that were creating the inequalities that trapped them in the first place. So sure, you can project queerness onto the narrative and that can be genuinely liberating for some people. but the movie places the audience within the boundaries of a white and traditionally feminine aristocratic queerness that maintains the hegemony of Barbie's pink image.
Where's anti-colonial Barbie?
I now invite the viewer to imagine the most homosexual thing of which you could possibly conceive. I now invite the viewer
Two
to
women
please
scissoring.
stop thinking about Andrew Garfield in literally any role. The correct answer is this movie. This is the gay one. Starring the notorious cottagecore lesbians who defined a generation of young lesbians' aesthetics, this tale of female love opens with a song about friendship. I can't play it for copyright reasons, but let me read you some of the lyrics. If I could wish for one thing, I'd take the smile that you bring. Wherever you go in this world, I'll come along. Together, we dream the same dream. Forever, I'm here for you. You're here for me. Oh, sorry, that's a Mitski song. Let me read the Barbie lyrics. 'Cause all I ever wanted is here. All I ever wanted. All I want is you. Always you. It's always you. Wait a second. No, those were the Mitski lyrics. Hard to tell the difference between a genuine love song and a Barbie song about friendship. Huh? So now that we've established this song is clearly between a lesbian and her ethereal bisexual wife, let's move on with the plot. As they're engrossed in homosexualist lyricism, someone's daughter walks in and starts ranting about friend drama. But these two platonic friends want to emphasize the importance of gal palism to this Sims 3 character and tell her a tale of two besties, just like them.
This is
They
incredible.
love to sing together, like Teresa and I do.
Anything else you and Teresa like to do? This film epitomizes Barbie's celebration of female relationships. Of course, not all media that focuses on female connection is inherently queer. However, in a landscape where most media not only centers male protagonists and male relationships, but also demonizes female relationships as drama-ridden,
Shut up!
overly complicated, Barbie's representation of a raw
I
and
just feel a
real
little
connection
called out
between
right
women
now.
makes it easy for queer people to attach to the dynamic that, for once, doesn't involve patriarchal social organization in quite the same way as mainstream film. If the male gaze is present at all, then it's just off to the side. So Teresa and Barbie go on to tell their daughter a story of friendship. This story centers the relationship between Liana and Alexa, two bros broing it up for the camera. It's obvious what's going on.
Just
And the
gal
setup
palling it
reminds us
up.
that their relationship is obvious. They love to skip, they love to hold hands, they have a catchphrase.
Best friends today, tomorrow, and always.
Mind you, this was completely unprovoked. For no narrative reason at all, they just start acting gay. The
They
movie
just
has
got
no shame.
married.
At some point, they find these heart things in a river, which is most definitely a symbol of their love, and they plan to use these hearts to make necklaces with the power to grant wishes. Listen here, I don't know, okay? Stop asking questions. Though us adults understand the implications, the suggestions might not be obvious to a young queer person, but it's about as obvious as it could be. The movie has yet to present a heterosexual alternative, thus queer people are free to project their identity onto the characters and adventure, just as intended.
What do you mean,
Eventually, they find a
Archangel?
girl in some mirror named Melody who tells them the story of the muses of music, who once protected something called the Diamond Castle, the birthplace of all music. At some point, one of the baddies, Lydia, wanted music for herself and betrayed the muses by At some point, one of the baddies, Lydia,
Clearly a bisexual. She plays both flutes at once, if you know what I'm saying.
music for herself and betrayed the muses by turning them into stone. But they were able to keep music safe by hiding the Diamond Castle and giving the key to the Mirror Girl. This is some pretty deep lore for a quick story they're telling a 12-year-old. Either way, now Lydia and her dragon are after the Mirror Girl and our two lovers. Left with no other choice, Liana and Alexa are compelled to help Mirror Girl and forge a path to the Diamond Castle. On the way to their destination, they encounter twin womanizers. Usually in Barbie movies, there tends to be an air of heterosexualism that comes to descend its wrath onto the story, even if romance isn't at
specter
the
of
center of the plot.
heterosexuality.
Curiously, in Barbie and the Diamond Castle, our heroines seem completely uninterested in heterosexual romance.
One girl fair and pretty, and one a dark beauty.
You have to be kidding. No, they were really cute.
Too cute for their own good.
Hoodwinked.
They think they're charming, rakish, roguish.
The heterosexual specter
They're literally finishing each other's sentences.
haunting the Barbies is explicitly challenged. Honestly, I feel that this movie shoves homosexuality down my throat. At one point, the girls are forced to solve a riddle to get across a bridge, and they're successful, so they literally cross a rainbow bridge to their destination. Listen, there's on the nose, and then there's literally sucking the nose dry. And this honker feels pretty sucked. Not in front of the kids. Please.
Oh
But
my
my beak
God.
smells of tension in the air. With every intense affair comes
my
moments
God.
that test the limits of love. On their journey, they find an abandoned mansion where the head of household claims to have been waiting for two friends.
It's been foretold, two friends, best friends, will come.
Two gal pals will come. Two gal pals will come a knocking. Two gal pals will come a rockin', so don't come a knockin'. Oh no.
Live in the hall. For years, we've been tending the hall until the rightful owners arrive.
You must be mistaken.
And there was
Oh well, it
one
can't possibly
bed.
be them because they're two wives, right? Oh, it is them. Forgive me, I forgot we had abolished the truth while I was gone. Now, Alexa wants to stay there forever and live with her gay bestie, but gay bestie is like, no, queen, your lips look really good today, but we promise to help Melody. And oh damn, Alexa hits her back with the,
You're choosing Melody over me. No, it's not like that.
what a blow. Let's see if Liana can recover.
If you were really my friend, you'd understand.
You're right.
I don't understand. Come on, Sparkles.
Damn, all this jealousy, all this tension. We know what's really going on here. Liana leaves. Alexa stays. Who will help these mourning gays?
I know you miss her.
Miss her? Why would I miss her? We've only been friends for as long as I can remember. She's been with me through the best and worst times of my life. She knows me better than anyone else in the entire universe. I feel like a part of me is gone.
Hey, I just can't.
It's 'cause you're
I can't
gay.
put my finger on what they mean by this. Obviously, they
Oh
want
my
nothing
God.
more than to return to each other. And the way in which they pine is extremely homosexual. After sufficient angst, Alexa and Liana are reunited. Unfortunately, Alexa is hypnotized, Liana is captured, and now they're hanging over the edge of a cliff. Oh, and they're back up. How?
In hell?
What? It doesn't matter. I'm 21 years old. I have an associate's degree. I don't care. Oh, and now she's holding her like a lover. Okay, fine.
Best friends. Today, tomorrow, and always.
Kiss her, kiss her, kiss. Oh. Lame.
At this point, the Dayquil was starting to kick in, and I'm not really sure what happened, but I'm pretty sure they beat Lydia and saved the Diamond Castle through the power of music. They make up, make
Oh my
out,
God,
they're anointed
they-
princesses of music, and
Wait, they just straight up killed Lydia?
through the power of music.
Oh my God. They turned her into fucking stone and this innocent dragon.
They make up, make out, they're anointed princesses of music, and the muses even offer for them to stay and live in the castle together. Surprisingly enough, they just really want nothing more than to be cottagecore lesbians.
Once I would have said yes in the blink of an eye. But now, I just want my old home back. It was more than enough.
And so our lesbianas return home, and for some reason they are given magic beans which help them grow lots of flowers to sustain their business. Alright, listen,
I mean, that's-
whatever.
that's
The only
nice.
magic bean here is me, and I declare them homosexuals. Now, while Barbie and the Diamond Castle accomplishes a surprisingly refreshing subversion of the male gaze, let's not give it too much credit. While we certainly get a movie focusing on female perspectives, it's definitely a specific and exclusive type of femininity. Everyone's conventionally beautiful, thin, and ultra-feminine. By all means, if you're conventionally beautiful, thin, ultra-feminine, and living your best and healthiest life, you keep doing you. But just like every other Barbie movie, this one's presenting that image of womanhood as the only good and righteous kind. So, good on this movie for giving us a different perspective than mainstream film, but let's remain critical of the fact that this movie doesn't do much to subvert the hegemony of the Barbie brand. At the same time, the obvious queer subtext of the film provides an avenue for queer people to feel comfortable and represented in some sense, even if it is within the bounds of Barbie's hegemony. Well, if Barbie and the Diamond Castle is neither a revolutionary work of radical post-Marxist deconstructionist feminist literature, nor a paleo-conservative ethnocentric manifesto, then how can we write inflammatory tweets about it? Please, for the love of God, tell me what to be mad about.
No, get more mad.
So, was it necessary to write a superfluous analysis about Barbie, only to cowardly declare myself post-truth and hide behind nuance? It doesn't take a genius to conclude that things are complicated. I don't know. Or do I? Some things live in a liminal space. Some things have dual meanings, unstable meanings, or no meaning. Barbie's image isn't as static as her most staunch critics present her to be, nor is she so devoid of meaning as to be a true force for liberation. The Barbie world is a space for young people to project their identity, and it would be remiss for us to tell young queer people that they're morally fallible for having a special connection to the brand that helped them explore their identity. At the same time that it's fine to have a connection with Barbie, by acknowledging the contingency of meaning,
not with the brand.
we can still provide good critiques of the ways Barbie privileges certain types of bodies and femininities. In this way, we might call Barbie a floating signifier. That's basically a fancy pseudo-intellectual word for a symbol that has no stable meaning. Barbie is the product of a bunch of different political conflicts in relationships in society. So to say that Barbie is either the epitome of heterosexuality or the logical end of homosexualism is silly. She's both and none. Just the movies are written by dozens of different people in 2 different decades. This isn't to say that critiques of the Barbie brand lose salience in the fact of her unstable meaning. Just that Barbie's significance is more contingent and contextual than one might think. Barbie's material impact and meaning is going to be highly variable between a Mattel factory worker in Indonesia versus a critical feminist scholar in New England versus a young queer person who cut their Barbie's hair in a way to better reflect their own desires. Our best bet is to think about the different conditions under which meaning is made, because at least that way we can start to do the work of moving out of our own bubbles of anger towards some sort of empathy, compassion. Compassion is still okay, right? I'm not gonna say Barbie being gay is canon, because when it comes to Barbie, there is no canon. The whole point of Barbie is to determine the world of Barbie yourself. Even if there are constraints that condition how kids view and play with Barbie, ultimately, she exists not to exist. So, is Barbie gay? Well, you decide.
Hell yeah, she is. Also, this video is really good. Are they the YouTube channel is Are They Gay? Go give them a follow. Chat, I've been streaming for 4 hours. If you've enjoyed this content, please throw some bits or subs my way. Maybe we could get a hype train going. Who knows? We must normalize lesbian princess. True. Put glasses on so that in a decade or two we can have gay Disney princess love stories too. Yeah, honestly, they really whiffed the ball, you know? Good night, Mithril Mist. I'm glad you had a good D&D session. Get good sleep. Yeah, they screwed the pooch on Frozen.